Oh, let me turn my TV down. What's going on, everybody? Crazy Dog back with a surprise late night Guardians live stream for you guys. I know if anyone's still up at this hour, you guys are probably relaxing in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and you're checking your phone, and all of a sudden you get a notification that I am live. And you're probably thinking to yourselves, it's Crazy Dog live. What's he doing? Then you see the title and you're like, oh, another Guardians themed video, huh? No, this is not a Guardians video. This is a late night MLB live stream. Of course, I'm repping the Guardians / Indians because, of course, that's my team. For those who didn't know, if you can't tell by now, I'm a Guardians fan. For anyone new, what's up, Jacob? But yeah, as you can see by the title, trade season is almost here. I believe we are now officially 11 days away from the trade deadline. And like I've said prior, trade winds are starting to blow a little bit. And I'm getting a very, very good gut feeling that this deadline is going to be crazy. Ken Rosenthal said on a podcast, I think today, he says that he thinks this deadline is going to be nuts. Phils and Guardians. Yep. Should be a fun series. But anyways, here's how things are going to go. As you can see by the title, in this live stream, we're going to go through every single team. And I'm going to talk about whether I think they're buyers or sellers. Or maybe they're one of those teams that's in the middle. And, of course, I will be utilizing Tier Maker for this endeavor. This should be very interesting. I cannot wait to freaking get into this thing, of course. But as you see, we got buyers, fringe, buy, sell, and sellers. And I'm also going to go through each team's remaining schedule before the deadline. We're going to look at their spot in the standings, and we're going to see if they have a chance at improving their spot. Now, really, I'm only going to do this for teams in the fringe, buy, sell, and the sellers, because obviously buyers are going to buy unless they stink it up and then they wind up being fringe. But yeah, most of the buyers are probably going to be straight up buyers. So, of course, as you can see by the order of the teams on your screen, we're going to start off with the damn Stankies. Now, right off the bat, Stankies, 57-45 on the year. And if you ask any Yankee fan out there, what do you think they're going to do at the deadline? I bet you they would say, oh, they're going to buy. Watch them buy. Watch. They're going to make a move. They're going to buy. Now, in terms of their current situation, they're a game back of 4th place. They're 4 games back of 3rd. They're 8.5 back of 2nd. And they're 9.5 back of the Baltimore Orioles in 1st. I never thought I'd see that this soon. Congrats to the O's. You're in 1st place. You caught and passed the Rays. That's impressive. Funniest thing is, look at the run differential. The Rays have a plus 144 run differential and an expected win-loss record based off that differential of 64-36. They're 4 wins worse than their expected win-loss based off their differential. The O's have a plus 48 run differential, and they're supposed to be 53-43, but instead they're 59-37. They've been very impressive. Now, of course, like I said, Yankees fans are going to think they're going to, get it in their head that they're going to probably buy. And then what's going to be funny is when they buy and they still stink because they're going to buy something small. They're not going to go big game hunting. They're probably going to go after like a smaller name because that's what they're probably going to do. Now, as for the remaining schedule heading into the trade deadline, they have a 3-gamer against Kansas City starting tomorrow. They should win that series. But then they host the Mets. Streets are saying Aaron Judge might, keyword, might be back for that series. No proof. I just heard it on Twitter from people that might know things. But then it gets tough to end the month. They hit the road to Baltimore. And then they end the month of July, and I believe they actually spend the trade deadline in Tampa. Yeah. They spend deadline day in Tampa. So, all I'm going to say is this. You better beat the Royals. You better beat Kansas City. If you don't, oh my God. So, with that, I'm going to put them in the buyer category. I know. They got to be the first and possibly the only last place team to be a certified buyer. Now, you're probably like, we're crazy dog. Couldn't they, be fringe? Yeah, they could be. I think they're going to be like borderline buyers to fringe. So, next we go to the Angels. Now, unlike the Yankees, the Angels situation is a little bit better, per se. They're above 500, 49 and 48. The Yankees are 3 games above 500. They're only 9 games out of first, but they got to catch Texas, of course. Both Houston and Texas. And they're only 5 games out of the wild card. So technically, they're behind the Yankees in that department. If I had to guess, if their situation does not improve, I think they're probably going to be low-key sellers. For that reason, as I will look up their schedule here in a minute. All right. So here's the Los Angeles Angels schedule. As I pull it up here, quick second. Gotta wait for it to load up. They start a series against Pittsburgh. Again, just like with the Yankees facing off against Kansas City. They should win this series. Again, should. After that, they got Detroit and Toronto before they head to Atlanta. And all those games are on the road. My God, they're not going to be home again back in LA until after the deadline. So it's very possible Shohei Ohtani has played his final game at home. That's actually crazy. Well, no. Well, yeah, I guess this could be his final home series against Pittsburgh. That's right. Yeah. Now, what's really impressive is the Angels just took the freaking Yankees behind the woodshed and beat the crap out of them. Swept them like nothing. They've actually had a pretty good start to the second half. But I mean, I'm not going to sleep on Pittsburgh, but we scored 26 runs on them. And our offense is normally half asleep. Like I said, they're in third place. They're a half a game ahead of Seattle. And I think they could catch Houston, but Houston's going to definitely improve. We already know that for a fact. They are going to improve. What's up, Lamar? With the emojis, Phillies are buyers, sitting currently in second place, 10.5 out of first. Sheesh. What's up, Robert? Always good to see you in the chat. But yeah, the Angels are in a very precarious spot. That's why I have them as fringe. But things could go south. And now let's talk about the Phillies, shall we? So as Jose mentioned in the chat, I believe they are indeed in second place now. Of course, they got to play us. Coming up, starting tomorrow. But they're 10.5 games out of first. They're actually tied with the Marlins for second. And they're comfortably ahead of the Mets, 7 games ahead of them. So I think they're relatively safe. The only concern, of course, is could they possibly fall apart? Never know, right? You really never know what's going to happen. But you look at their schedule. Of course, like I said, they play us. They play the Guardians, 3 games in Cleveland. And then after that, oh man, they got Baltimore for 3 at home. They go to Pittsburgh for 3. And then they have this one random game against Miami on the 31st. And then they have 2 against the Nationals. I'm sorry, that's already, no, I misinterpreted that. Sorry, guys. I saw the completed game portion. I hate how they do that. Sorry, guys, I misinterpreted. They actually, they start August with the Marlins. 4-game series. I don't know why. I misinterpreted the complete games already. I was like, why do they have a one random game against the Marlins? But no, they have a 4-gamer. Ouch. And Marlins are no slouches this year. I mean, it's very possible the Phillies could fall off a little bit, but I think they're going to be just fine. Of course, I'm hoping that we take this series against them. We'll see how things go. The matchups are exactly what I predicted, too. Suarez goes technically tonight. And then game 2 will be Wheeler. Game 3 will be Nola. Just like I predicted. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. Now, in regards to their status, I think they are buyers. They are straight up buyers, too. Because they're in second place. Now we talk about Baltimore. Yeah. How about the freaking O's, huh? Obviously, like I've said, they're in first place. Really impressive start to their the second half. They're going on one hell of a run. They really are. I'm very impressed with them. Now the question is, can they keep it up? Because again, Tampa's right there. Now, let's take a look at their future games coming up here. And we're going to go through and see how I think they could do. I think they're going to definitely be, at worst, a fringe team, though. Yeah. They're going to be, at worst, a fringe team. So as soon as their schedule loads up, we can determine if they're going to be a fringe or are they going to be a straight-up buyer. Well, they finish up their series with the Rays. They just started that series. They lost 2 or 3 to the Dodgers after sweeping the Marlins. They have 3 more against Tampa. Then they face the Phillies on the road. And then they have the Stankies, of course, at home. And then they go to Toronto right before the trade deadline. And they'll be spending the deadline across the border. So, 1 home series before the trade deadline. In that case, I think they're at worst a fringe buyer. I think they are going to be a buyer. Yeah. I don't think they're really in danger of falling out of favor. And I mean, it would take a massive collapse for them to be a seller. They're not going to be a seller. They're going to be a buyer. I'll say, if anything, they're going to be just on the very outer edge of buying. They're going to be buyers, but they're going to be more fringe to like buyer level. They're going to be like, here's the borderline between fringe buyers, sellers, and actual buyers. They're going to be like right here, I think. But we'll see how they do to end the month of July. Because again, we have 11 days left. Anything can happen. They could fall off the face of the earth and just be a fringe buyer where they maybe sell something or buy something. But I think they're going to be straight up buyers. Yeah. And now things get crazy as we have the Boston Red Sox, who I've already mentioned a little bit. Of course, they are just barely ahead of the Yankees in fourth place. 8.5 out of first. They're 3 games out of the wild card, so they're not dead. In fact, no team in the AL East is technically dead yet. They're all within range of the wild card. And I think it's very possible the Red Sox they're going to be a fringe buyer. Yeah, they're going to be a fringe buyer, I think. They're getting hot a little bit. Their bats are awake. Pitching is a little but I think they maybe add a piece or two, and they could be able to be maybe a low-key threat in the American League wild card race. I believe Ohtani, yeah. If he gets traded, oh my God, that would be nuts. I don't think it'll happen, though. But who knows? Now, as far as the Red Sox, their schedule coming up. Let's take a look. And yes, I'm doing this for pretty much every team up to this point because I want to see if this team could possibly fall off the face of the earth and become a fringe, or maybe they could even become a seller. I mean, Boston would have to fall pretty hard to be a seller at this point. I have them more at fringe right now. So let's actually get rid of that. Okay. See when it shows up here. Oh, we wait for the schedule to show up. I always love it when it takes forever to show up, right? It just does that sometimes. It works at its own pace. But yeah, Boston, 3 games out of the wild card, 8.5 out of first place, only 3 games out of third. And that second wild card, of course, is occupied by the final wild card is occupied by the Toronto Blue Jays. Now to end the month of July and getting into August, it ain't gonna be easy at all. They lost 2 of 3 to Oakland. Ouch. But they have the Mets starting tonight, technically the 21st, 3-gamer. Then they host Atlanta. Ooh. Then they have the Giants and then the Mariners on the road, heading out west. Ooh. And of course, that means, guys, they will be spending their deadline on the road in Seattle. Which means, guys, they could very well, possibly, fall out of favor and become a seller. Yeah. I think they're actually going to be on the back end there. I think they maybe run into a little bit of roadblock. I'm going to put them behind the Angels on the more seller area. Because I don't know, man. We got to see how they do. I think they're going to be a fringe buyer seller, though. Yeah, without a doubt. Now we got the Braves. I think we already know where they're going to end up. Straight up buyer. Bar none. Doesn't even matter what their schedule has coming up. They're way far ahead of everybody in the NL East. They're 10.5 ahead of them in the East. They got a plus 145 run differential. They are straight up running away with that division. I mean, I guess you could say we kind of thought this was going to happen, but damn. As far as their schedule, could they possibly, flounder? Just for lulz, let's look at their schedule. Not like it matters, of course. I've seen crazier things happen, but I don't see an 11-game losing streak coming from the Braves. They have struggled a bit, but yeah, they're too good to freaking flounder. Not to mention, they have the Brewers for 3. Then they have the Red Sox for 2, all on the road. Then they host the Brewers, and then they host the Angels. Yeah, they're going to be just fine. They're not going nowhere. Like I said, they have floundered a bit out of the break. They've only won 2 games. They blanked the White Sox in the first game back off the break, and they just snapped their losing streak with a 7-5 victory over J.B. Taylor's D-backs in a game that they were losing for a while. But, the long ball was unleashed, and they did that thing. Yeah. They did that thing. I think the Braves will be just fine. No worries. No worries at all. The only worry you should have is how many pieces would you have to give up to add a piece or 2 to your team? So far, we haven't run into any bona fide sellers until now, as we have the Washington Nationals. And they're the first bona fide seller. You look at where they are in the division, they're firmly in last place, of course. They're 24 games back of the Mets. I think they're bona fide sellers regardless. I don't even need to look at their schedule. But I mean, if you really want me to look at their schedule, I will. Just for, keep things interesting. Oh, I mean, they could be fringe, right? No, they're not going to be fringe sellers. No, unless the Mets fall on their faces, which it's looking like they've already done that. They're going to be straight up sellers. Lane Thomas is probably going to be one of the bigger pieces on the move. I can't think of anyone else that could be on the move, but I think Lane Thomas could be one of those big pieces, most likely. But anyways, to end the month and everything, let's see what they got. So, yeah, Giants, Rockies, all at home. Then they go to Queens, and then they host the Brewers. Yeah, they're firmly in last place. They're not going to climb out of that. If they manage to climb out of last place, I will be shocked. Now we get to a nice little string of teams that are at worst buyers for sure. Like they're at worst fringe. Starting with the D-backs. Shout out, of course, as always, to my guy, JB Taylor at Walk-Off Sports Talk. This is his squad. I have them as straight up buyers. They're in a perfect spot in that division where, I mean, you look at where they are. They are tied for second with the Giants. They're 8 games ahead of the Padres. I think they're pretty locked up tight in a at least firm buyer scenario. Like they would have to, again, fall flat on their face to even think about being a fringe. Let's see here. Arizona Diamondbacks. Schedule. All right. So we look at their schedule coming up here. I love doing this. This was a dope ass idea by me. Right. Their schedule is actually not the worst, but it's still pretty challenging. They have the Reds on the road. We all know the Reds are a very tough team now. Thanks to the Twins, mainly. They just wanted Tyler Mahle so bad, they gave him Encarnacion Strand and Spencer Steer. Good going, Minnesota. You revived the Big Red Machine. Good going. You got Dashie out here calling his team the freaking Big Dogs of Ohio. Thanks a lot, Minnesota. Freaking bums. But yeah, they got 3 against the Cardinals at home. Then they host the Mariners. And then, of course, they will end the month of July and get into August against the Giants. Yeah. So that should be interesting. See how that goes. But yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. You know, they should be able to win the majority of these games if they play their best ball, which they did take 2 of 3 against the Braves, who are one of the best teams in the league. So that's impressive in itself. I think it all varies on the pitching matchups, which they should be good. They shouldn't have anything to worry about. As long as they play their kind of ball, they should be fine. Now, let's move on to the Rays. And once again, I have them in the certified buyer category right here. Just behind the Braves. And notice I do not have this in the order of how good they are. It's more or less, do I think that they're fringe or are they straight up buyers? The closer to the right, the farther to the right you are, the more fringe you are. You're not a fringe buyer, but you're kind of leaning that way a little bit. So now we talk about the Tampa Bay Rays, and I talked about the Braves being in a little bit of a funk. The Braves have had some the Rays have had some issues lately. Looking at the Rays' schedule to round out the month of July and getting into August, right around the deadline, I think these guys are probably going to be pretty aggressive because they have some holes to fill. Pitching could definitely use an improvement or two. They could always add a piece to their lineup. And yeah, it's not going to be easy for the Rays, for the other fish, the bottom feeders. They have a 4-gamer against Baltimore in progress. They lost the game today, whatever you want to say it is. The first game of the series. In fact, guys, they've lost 5 in a row. Ouch. They've lost 5 in a row. They better be careful. Freaking Blue Jays could catch them if they don't snap out of it. Baltimore is not a slouch, as we are now finding out. 3 more games against Baltimore at home. Then they host the Marlins in a nice little fish fight. Then they go to Houston, and then they go to the Bronx. We'll see how that goes. I think they're bona fide buyers, but they might be more motivated to make a move if they flounder a little bit more. Again, another fish reference. Flounder. Fish references. Yeah. But, I mean, you look at where they are in the standings. They're fine. No need to panic. You're 4.5 ahead of Toronto. But I would maybe start worrying if you can't at least take 2 against Baltimore. I'd start to worry a little bit. Because they were scorching hot to start the year. Are they running out of gas already? You have to wonder, how long do they let this go before they get a little desperate and they maybe start getting aggressive and they pull the trigger to try to add something to their lineup to change the energy? You'd have to think it'd be soon. Because, like I said, Toronto's closing in. And I'll get to them in a minute. But as you see, of course, yeah, I have them as a bona fide buyer. Now, speaking of the other fish, let's talk about the Marlins. All right, so Marlins, again, in a very interesting spot, tied for second in the NL East. They're in good shape. They're 7 games ahead of the Mets in third. And just like with the Rays, of course, they do play each other a week before the deadline for a 2-game series. Well, that'll be a fun series because the Miami Marlins are finally starting to emerge as a legit team for once. Finally. Took them long enough. My God. Like, man, they were mired in that rebuild forever. I mean, they did have something really cooking in the early 2010s when they had Giancarlo and they had freaking JT Realmuto. Of course, was Jose Fernandez. They had that squad was looking nice. And then the unfortunate passing of Jose Fernandez happened, and it's like the vibe of that team just vanished. And they just sold everybody. That's tough. But they're finally getting it going now. You know? Their farm is finally starting to, to bear fruits. Right? Now, to end their month, I'd say it's pretty easy for them, low key, if they play their good kind of ball. 3 at home against Colorado. You do have that series against Tampa on the road, but then you're back at home facing Detroit and Philly. So unless you come out sleepwalking against Detroit, Colorado, and the others, Philly and Tampa, they should be fine. They should be fine. I think at worst, they're going to be a fringe buyer. I'm going to put them on the, I'm going to put them at the very back. I'm going to put them right at the fringe buyer, right up front. They're going to be a fringe buyer, I think. So they're not there yet, but I think this could change, of course, as we get closer. Are you going to do this again, like a week before the deadline? Probably not. I might do like an updated stream, looking to see like where teams are, a week before, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I got the Marlins in the fringe section. Now we talk about the Giants. And the Giants, just like the Marlins, are hanging around. They're in 3rd place in the NL West, tied with the Diamondbacks, comfortably 8 games ahead of the Padres. They're literally in the same exact boat as the Marlins for the most part. They were actually riding a very impressive win streak until the Reds took the last 2 games against them. And you look at what they got coming up on their schedule. Let's see here. So they got Cincinnati, of course. No, they just faced Cincinnati. That's right. But they face Washington. So this is your opportunity to get back on the winning side of things and get that good vibe rolling again. Let's see how their July ends. I believe they do have a series coming up against Arizona. I've already mentioned that. So looking at their schedule, of course, Washington, 1 random game against the Tigers. That's a makeup of April 16th. Game was postponed. Makes sense that they, have them out on the east side. They could just, on their way back home, they just stop in Detroit for a day. 10:10 Pacific. Damn, oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, damn. 10:35 first pitch. Damn, so if you're out west, you got to wake up at 10:30 to watch this game against the Nationals and then 10 a.m. to watch the Tiger game. Wow. Now, after that, you have some pretty lackluster, opponents at home, besides the D-backs, of course. But you have the A's at home, the Red Sox at home, and then, of course, you have the D-backs. So you could definitely go on a little run, depending on what the Dodgers got to face. But on that, I'm going to put the Giants as a straight up buyer. I'm going to put them right in the middle of the pack. I think they're going to be a straight up buyer. Now, we move on to the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, thanks to the Pirates being absolutely garbage, the Cardinals are no longer the worst team in the NL Central. Now, knowing the Cardinals, they're going to somehow find their devil magic and they're going to, because that's how it usually goes. They're two and a half, one and a half games out of third place. Like I said, watch the devil magic. They're going to start creeping up. They've won 6 straight. So I see they found their devil magic. They found the magic. Watch. They found it. Now, can they keep it up? Let's see here. So, Saints, Lewis, Cardinals. I know NL Central fans are like, oh my God, here we go again with the devil magic crap. It's what they do. They have it like locked away in a vault. And then if they're ever like on the brink of having their season essentially be over, they run to the vault, they put in the code, they open it up, and there's one like little stool or like a table with like a light shining down. It's got a jar. It says devil magic on it. They go over, they bring this like devil magic jar out, they open it up, they put their hand in, it's got like a baseball, kind of like what the Monstars do. And everybody, they pass the ball around, and all of a sudden, they gain this devil magic. And all of a sudden, they turn into a good team. They do this all the time. Now, is this a fake little run, or are they actually serious? Time will tell. Time will tell. But look at their schedule. It's definitely easy, kind of. Yeah. They continue playing like they've been playing. They could make a run. They have 3 more against the Cubs. They just dismantled the Cubs tonight. 7-2. 3 more against the Cubs. 3 against Arizona. And then they have 4 more against the Cubs. And then they will spend the deadline at home against Minnesota. Man. How about this? They don't... After this series against Arizona on the from the 24th to the 26th, they don't hit the road again until the second week of August. So, like I said, they're gonna go on a run. We can all see it. Now, of course, NL Central fans are hoping that I just jinxed them. Which, if I did, you're welcome. Oh, man, that team is so crazy. You know, people say the Guardians have, like, this black magic. No, the Cardinals do. They do this every year. They'll stink for, like, a month or 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden, just like magic, they become good. Now, with that being said, like I said, they're in 4th place. 2.5, or like a game and a half. Yeah, a game and a half back of Chicago. Now, where does that put them in terms of being a buyer, fringe seller, or buyer and a seller? Well, if they continue to play like they've been playing, I think, if anything, they could be a fringe. I'm going to actually put them at the very back of fringe seller. Yeah, they're going to be a fringe team. I think they sell to buy. Yeah. They're going to sell to buy. Probably get rid of like expiring or bad, contracts they don't really want anymore. Like, I know people have talked about Dylan Carlson because Tyler O'Neill's coming back soon. So they're probably going to get rid of Carlson, which I would love him on the Guardians. I know that for a fact. But, yeah, I think they sell to buy a little bit. Maybe add some more pieces or whatever. Some small stuff. And then they try to see what else they can get with their devil magic. But yeah, I got the Cardinals as a fringe buy-sell team. And now let's talk about arguably the most disappointing team of the season. The richest payroll in the league, only to be one of the worst teams in the league. That's tough. Definitely most disappointing. The New York Mets. 45-51, 7 games back of the Miami Marlins. 17.5 games back of first place. Ouch. 7 games back of the wild card. Now, looking at their schedule as I pull it up, of course, they're kind of borderline looking like sellers, which is hilarious considering, like I said, they spent all that money. They went bonkers when it comes to money. Do I have to look up their payroll? I'll look up their payroll. Because some of you might be thinking, nah, they didn't spend that much. Yeah, they did. They did. They spent a lot. Now they're coming off a series where I think they won the series against the White Sox. Kind of ironic how Quintana lost to the White Sox. Quintana's old team. He's been through some stuff. But yeah, to end the month, let's see what they got. July 2023. Colorado for 3 on the road. Wait, what? It just changed on me. What the heck was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Boston. Oh, that's even worse. They have Boston on the road for 3. Then they go to the Bronx for that Subway series, like I mentioned earlier. Streets are saying Aaron Judge could be back for that series. We'll see what happens. And then they host the Nationals. And they spend the deadline in Kansas City. So yeah, I think they go on a little bit of a run here. At least they better. At least make it look interesting, you know? I think in the end, I actually have them as, again, a fringe buyer seller. I think they sell a little bit to buy and add some more pieces to that team. You know, maybe clean up a little bit of cap space. You know. But yeah, I got them as a fringe team. Next, we got another bona fide seller. Not even going to look at their schedule. They're way out of it. It's the Oakland A's. And then we talk about the leader in the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, let's take a look at the Brew Crew's schedule. I believe I've already mentioned one of the teams that they do got to play coming up here. But yeah, there are some teams I won't even look at their schedule because they're so out of it. Like the A's, for instance. Not even going to be worth it. What do you mean? Well, they're 32 games out of first place. They're like 21 games out of freaking fourth. Damn near 22 games out of freaking fourth. Yeah, they're done. They have 27 wins on the year, 72 losses. Team is ass. They're an embarrassment, too. Embarrassment to the league. What's up, Yusuf? How am I doing? I'm doing great. How are you doing? So I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit more, okay, guys? Which, I mean, we're getting closer to, like, teams that are more, like, more, easier to determine. But for the Milwaukee Brewers, of course, they have the Braves for 3 at home. They host the Reds for 3 again. We saw what they did to the Reds the last time they just played them. They swept them under the freaking rug like nothing. Then they have the Braves on the road. Then they face Washington. And they spend the deadline in Washington. In fact, they actually play, according to the Central Daylight Time, thing, it says they play, the first pitch is at 6, so it's at 7 Eastern. So right around the time of the deadline, pretty much. Wow. Just a little bit after the deadline. So essentially, the teams will be on the field warming up when the deadline ends. So you might see hug watches going down, late in the deadline if they do anything like that. But anyways, when it comes to the Brewers, again, I think it's easy to determine what they're going to do. they're going to be buyers. You know, they're going to be buyers. I mean, you look at where they are in the division, they're 2.5 ahead of Cincinnati. And I think they wind up holding on to that lead unless Cincinnati gets hot, which they could. They've already done it once. But it's pretty clear that Milwaukee has their number. And whether Reds fans want to admit it, yeah, they can't beat Milwaukee. So I got Milwaukee as a straight up buyer. They're going to be like right around, again, the Giants and the Phillies. They're going to be a straight up buyer. Not even fringe. They're going to be straight up buying, I think, if they make any moves. And then we talk about the Pirates. And of course, like I've mentioned with the A's, they're garbage. Seller. Mariners. Another interesting team to talk about here. You look at where they are in the standings. They're in 4th place. They're 9.5 out of first, half a game out of third, 5.5 out of the wild card. You look and see their schedule real quick here. Take a look at their schedule. And we'll see how favorable or not favorable it is. This will, of course, determine if I put them in the fringe or if I put them in the bona fide. I think they're more or less going to be a fringe buyer or seller. Yeah. Especially because they got to face off against the Blue Jays for 3 at home. Then they face the Twins, a team that they had trouble with just recently. They split the series. But yeah, they have to face the Twins for 3 on the road. Then they have Arizona. And then Boston at home. And that is, of course, where they will be spending the deadline before they head out west. So yeah, they have Boston. That's going to be tough. I think they're going to be fringe. Fringe buyer seller. They might sell a piece to get a good piece out of it. I think they're going to be more fringe buyer than seller. They're going to buy to sell, or like, you know, maybe buy a piece, but they're going to get rid of a piece to get one. White Sox. Oh, God. This team, another team that is very disappointing. A lot of people thought the White Sox were going to win the division. But then, you know, the season started. They were kind of up and down. They went through that horrendous losing streak. And they've woken up a little bit. They did take a series against the Mets. That's fresh off of getting their butts whipped by the freaking Braves, of course. But you look at what they got coming up here to end the month of July, heading into the deadline. Let's see what they got to deal with. This will determine if I think they're fringe. I don't think they're going to be fringe. They might end up being straight up sellers, especially because they have Minnesota for 3. Then they have a homestand against the Cubs and my Guardians with 4 games against us. And then they will be spending the deadline in Texas against the Rangers. Yeah, they're going to be sellers without a doubt. I don't think there's anything fringe. They're not going to be fringe. They don't give me a vibe of fringe seller. They're going to be a straight up seller, I think. Yeah, I got them in the front though cuz they're too good. They're going to be ahead of the Nationals in that department. Now, speaking of Chicago, let's talk about the Northsiders. Of course, the Cubs. They've been up and down a little bit, you know. I wouldn't say they've been disappointing. Injuries have really hurt them, of course. No pun intended, of course. But I think the Cubs will be just fine. I think they are probably going to end up being probably a fringe. They're 8.5 out of first. They're 6 out of second. 7 games out of the wild card. I think they more or less buy with the future in mind. They probably get rid of Bellinger. Maybe a few other pieces, you know, just to clear up some space. Maybe they bring in a piece or 2 for the future, like I said. Probably make some like smaller, minor league-ish trades to really juice up the farm a little bit. Which, I mean, if they trade Bellinger, they're going to get a good return for him. But I know I I think I know a couple Cubs fans, especially Josh from the Sports Fury. I think they're going to be more or less on the end of probably a fringe seller. I'm going to put them more towards the middle. You look at their schedule and everything, and in fact, let's take a look at their schedule here. I think they're going to keep it close. They might get hot, who knows? But they just got served by St. Louis. Not a good way to start your trade season, right? Because you want to get hot around this time to help motivate your front office to make a move to improve your team, right? Get the vibe going, the good vibe in the fan base. Especially considering you literally face the Cardinals 6 more times. Or no, 7 more times. Oh, God. Yeah, you're going to be seeing them damn Redbirds 7 more times. With a series against the Southsiders in between on the road, of course. Then you host the Reds. And of course, you'll be spending the deadline at home against Cincinnati. You have a 4-game series against them. Wow. I think they could maybe make things interesting. But again, I got them as a fringe team. We'll see what they do, though. I want to see what they do with Bellinger. Do you think the Guardians get Bellinger? Well, based off of what I've heard from one of our beat writers today, I don't think we're going after rentals, so you can essentially take Bellinger off the list, most likely. Technically, he's not a rental, but he does have an option that he's probably not going to pick up or whatever, so he's probably going to be a rental anyway. We're not in the position to do that stuff, so yeah, I don't see that. I don't see us doing that. But we look at the next team. Of course, we have the Houston Astros. I don't even need to look at their schedule. We already know what they're going to do. They're not fringe or anything. They're never a fringe team. They are a bona fide buyer. It's the way that they are. They will. It seems like they've been like that for a while. They're gonna add. They're a World Series contender. There's no fringe about them. I don't even need to look at their schedule. But because I'm sure a lot of you might be curious to hear what I think of their schedule, we'll look at it anyway. Because that's just the way I am. I think they're going to be a bona fide buyer. It's the way they are. Yeah. So they could go on a losing. I think if they go on a losing streak, that makes them even more aggressive. They're trying to catch Texas. I'm sure they're thinking, dadgummit, we're in second place. We're never in second place. They've led their division for so long. It's almost like, is their name in Sharpie or something? They've rarely not been in first place. This feels weird, I bet. And they've dealt with injuries, of course. A couple pitchers are out for the year. They've dealt with injuries all over. Jordan's been injured. I think Altuve's been injured. They're going to add. And you look at their schedule, it's going to get tough. Yeah. They have Oakland for 3 more. Then they go to Texas. They host Texas. Then they host Tampa. Then they have the Guardians in town. And the Guardians will be spending the deadline in Houston. I remember last year, Boston was in town in Houston when they traded when the Houston Astros traded for Christian Vasquez. Vasquez was literally in the other dugout. Like, imagine that. You're in the visitor dugout getting ready for the game. They were like a mere, I think, a few hours from the game. And all of a sudden, you get a call saying, yeah, you're being traded to the Astros. So you have to gather your stuff, get out the dugout, walk all the way to the other dugout, and then walk down the clubhouse because you're now a member of that team. That would be crazy. I've rarely seen that where 2 teams facing each other make a trade like that. Literally a mere hours, not even a mere hours. They were doing batting practice and stuff. That was freaking nuts. That day in general was busy for them. I think they made like a couple of trades. The Red Sox did too. That was a gnarly ass day, for real. But yeah, like I said, the Astros are going to be bona fide buyers. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, as for my Guardians, I think we already know about the Guardians at this point. I've said it over and over again. The Guardians are just straight up mid. They're definitely not bona fide buyers. No. No. I'm pretty sure we could easily be in the O's position and we wouldn't even be bona fide buyers. This team is injured to crap, of course, in the pitching department, as always. And the bats are alive, though. Now, the good news is, at least our GM's given us a little hope in regards to possibly adding a piece or two, as he said that they could possibly trade some pieces for maybe a bat for the outfield. I'm hoping they go out, they get a good mid to top tier bat for the outfield where they can move Will Brennan from right into center and turn Miles Straw into a fourth outfielder where he can come in as a defensive sub, and we don't really need his offense. His offense stinks. Like in terms of hitting home runs, he hasn't hit a home run in over 2 years, pretty much. It's freaking insane. He's the only guy I know that cannot hit a home run no matter how hard he tries. Oh yeah. But yeah, I've talked about like Dylan Carlson would be a good name. I've seen Tyler O'Neill's name come up from the Cardinals. Lars Nootbaar is a Guardian fan favorite. Of course, I've talked about many other pieces. But you look at our schedule heading out of July into August. Of course, we have Philadelphia at home, then Kansas City, and then Chicago. That stretch of 7 games right there is going to be big for us. Because if let's say we take 2 of 3 somehow against Philly, we'll be looking good. Especially if the Twins fumble it a little bit. But if we go into that 7-game stretch against Kansas City and Chicago, and let's say out of the 7 we go 5-2. Because we're going to lose a game or 2 in that 7-game stretch. We're not going undefeated. Hell no, we're not. Could you see it where, maybe you guys have a bad loss and you guys make a trade? That could happen. You never know. Got a freaking fly buzzing around my freaking microphone, of course. Freaking flies. Useless creatures. Swear. I could see it. I really could. Now, of course, like I said, we will be spending the deadline in Houston. So we'll see what happens there. But now, of course, in regards to where I think the Guardians are going to be placed, standings-wise, we're 2 games out of first place. So I don't think we're going to be bona fide sellers, obviously. I just think we're probably going to be fringe. We're going to be fringe buyers. We're going to buy to sell or sell to buy. Yeah, we're going to be like upper tier fringe buyers. I think it's like more or less like smaller moves. Cost controlled, maybe a little bit. Guys with term left, not rentals. We're not in that position. No, we're not in the position to do rentals. If we were like 1 or 2 pieces away, yes, I could see it. But no, we're not in that shape right now. No. So, yeah, that's the way I see that going. Now we go to the Dodgers. And the Dodgers are in a dogfight in the NL West with the Diamondbacks and the Giants just 2 games back. Yeah, they're both 2 games back. And we look at the Los Angeles Dodgers schedule. Let me look it up real quick here. As always, let's take a look and see what they got coming up on the schedule here. This stream is going to wind up being just about probably like an hour over a little bit. But hey, we're having fun here. And I'm going to turn off Spot Track. I don't even need that on. I'll look at it later. Because I was going to look at the Mets thing here. Actually, we'll just do that right now. Just to see how freaking horrible the Mets have been. Freaking large ass payroll to be trash. That's tough. So while we're waiting on that, let's take a look at. Okay, let's get rid of that stuff. So here is the schedule for the Dodgers heading into the end of July. 3 against the Rangers. That's going to be a banger series. 2 really good teams going at it. 2 division leaders. Then they have the Blue Jays and then the Reds at home. That's 6 games at home right there. And then you have the deadline at home against the A's. It's mainly the games before then, of course. But yeah, I think they'll be just fine. I do see them as buyers, though. They are going to be buyers. I think they focus more towards pitching, but I'm going to put them right around where the Brewers and right around here. Yeah, they're going to be buyers for sure. They're not going to sell anything off unless they want to get a big, big piece for it. Now let's talk about one of the most notoriously aggressive teams when it comes to making trades over the past couple of years, the San Diego Padres. AJ Preller. What are you going to do this year, buddy boy? You look at where that team is right now, they're in a bit of a hole. They are in a big hole. They stink this year. 10 games out of first, 8 games out of second. They're 6.5 out of the wild card. So again, they're not out of it. I think they're going to be fringe buyers. I don't even really need to look at their schedule, but for the purpose of this video, let's take a look at it real quick. And while that's cooking up, let's put them in the fringe buyers section. I think they buy to sell, or they sell to buy. I'm going to put them right around here. Yeah. I think the pressure of trying to win that division and make a wild card or whatever is going to put them right there. There we go. So yeah, I got them right in the smack dab in the middle of the fringe buy area. Looking at their schedule, of course, as we, of course, wait for it to load up. While that's loading up, let's get the Rangers schedule up here. So I can just go right to it instead of having to delay the stream even more. And then let's pull up the MLB's payroll so we can look and see how bad the Mets have been. The Mets have a $348 million payroll as of today. And they stink. Just like the Yankees. Must be a New York thing this year. 2 teams with extremely high payrolls, and they both stink. That's tough. I mean, at least the Yankees have injuries to blame. The Mets just suck. They just stink all the way through. Now, for the Padres here, as their schedule is taking forever to load up. Why not? They don't want me to see their schedule. We only got, 7 teams left? So, of course, now it wants to be super slow, huh? So, yeah, let's look at Texas, actually, while that's loading up. Because this thing is taking forever, dude. Come on. Show me the schedule, San Diego. Come on, man. I'm waiting here. But for Texas, they actually got the Dodgers, of course, at home. And then they head on the road to face the Astros for 3 and then the Padres for 3. And they'll be spending the deadline at home against the White Sox. I think these guys are going to be buyers. Not even fringe. They're going to be straight up buyers. So, yeah, I'm going to put them right there. Kansas City, it's too easy. They're sellers. Detroit. They're an interesting team. They really are. Very interesting. San Diego, they have Detroit on the road. They go to Detroit for 3. Then they have Pittsburgh for 3. And then they will host the Rangers for 3. And then they go to Colorado for the deadline. So I think they're going to be middling around a little bit. They're going to be a fringe team. Yeah. they're going to be a fringe team. Kansas City, I don't even need to worry about. They suck. They're just like the A's. But yeah, like I said, Detroit. Let's look at their schedule. Some people might actually believe that the Tigers could make a run and somehow slip into a wild card. Well, there's a problem. They are, no. They're 5.5 back of first place. Yeah, they're 5 games under 500. They're 5 games back of first place, 9.5 out of the wild card. So right now, their best bet is to, of course, win the division. But it's going to be tough, especially if the Guardians get hot again. We all know how the Guardians like to do. They kind of sputter around, and then they just get hot out of nowhere, like in August. And hopefully that happens again. But for Detroit, they're in an interesting spot. They're actually not a bona fide seller, in my eyes. I think they might actually be a low-key fringe buyer. They have San Diego for 3. Of course, they have that one random game against the San Francisco Giants. Then they have the Angels for 3, and then the Marlins for 3. Then they will be spending the deadline in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think they're going to more or less be fringe. They're not going to be straight up sellers. I think they do take a couple games from the likes of the Padres, who have struggled this year. And you look at the rest of their schedule, yeah. I think they steal a couple coming up here against the Padres. Maybe they steal 1 or 2 against them. I don't think they beat the Giants. They could easily take 1 from the Angels. And the Marlins, I don't know. But I think they maybe, just hover around mediocrity a little bit. They probably sell a couple pieces like maybe Erod. I was going to say maybe like Lorenzen. But depending on how they do in this stretch of games, they might keep them. Try to make a legit run at it. Because you never know. It also depends on how the Guardians and the Twins do. But like I've said, I got them as a fringe team. Now let's talk about Toronto. Toronto, as of this video, they're in 3rd place. Smack dab in the middle of the AL East. They're in a wild card spot. 5.5 back of first, 4.5 back of second. And they're in a very interesting spot. I think when it's all said and done, I think they're probably going to end up being a fringe buyer. They might make like a small trade, adding a piece or 2, maybe to the pen. Maybe you add a bat to the lineup. Maybe you add some depth just for insurance purposes, just in case, because injuries suck. But you look at their schedule, 3 against the Mariners on the road, 3 against the Dodgers on the road. Then you host the Angels and then Baltimore. So you could definitely win the majority of those games, but it's going to be tough. Especially on the road against Seattle and LA. But you never know. You honestly, truly never know how things could go. And yeah, I'm going to have them as more of like a fringe buyer. They're probably not going to make any big splashes. I'm going to have them kind of like right in the smack dab, just behind the Mariners. Only 3 teams left. And we're going to talk about the Twins here. Of course, we all know about the Twins, where they are in the standings. They lead the AL Central by a mere 2 games over the Guardians. They're 6.5 games ahead of us in the wild card. We're 6.5 games back in the wild card. Yeah, they kind of stink a little bit too. Of course, they did do all right against the Seattle Mariners, which really disappointed me because I wanted the Mariners to absolutely kick the crap out of Minnesota. Minnesota's had a tendency for falling apart late. Like, literally. Last year, their team literally just fell apart at the seams. Like, if I could visualize anything, it would just be just pieces, parts laying on the ground. That's the Twins. Their team literally crumbled because of injuries. They practically had a AAA lineup at the end of the year last year. Yeah. They've also been dealing with injuries this year. Surprise, surprise. Call them the Twinjuries. No, they're made of glass. At least it seems like the best players are made of glass. Schedule wise, it's not going to be the toughest schedule, but you never know with these guys because things can happen. 3 against the White Sox at home. You host the Mariners for 3 after you just split a series with them. Then you have Kansas City on the road. And again, anything can happen with divisional games. And then you will be spending the deadline in St. Louis. I think the Twins add a piece or two. Definitely. Considering the injuries and stuff and the lackluster play at spots, I think they add a piece or two. Probably add like another bullpen arm. And then they're probably going to maybe add a bat just for depth. But I do think they make a trade or two. I'm going to have them at the very back end of buyers. Yeah. Colorado, I want to say they're fringe, but they are not very good. Put them right there. I don't really even need to look at their schedule because you look at their place in the standings, they're 18 and a half out of first place. They're 8 and a half out of fourth. And we all know those other 4 teams are probably going to try to improve. I don't think the Rockies are going to be like that. I got them as a seller. And then to wrap it all up, of course, we're going to talk about the big dogs of Ohio. Of course. Of course, the tier maker saves the best for last. Am I right? We're talking about the Cincinnati Reds. Do I even need to look at their schedule? Now, the Reds, of course, had that insane win streak at one point earlier this season that put them in this spot. It didn't even seem like they were going to lose ever again. You know, they're bringing up their young players. We've already seen De La Cruz. They brought up Encarnacion Strand. Spencer Steer's up here. They've been dealing with injuries, too. I think Hunter Green is out for a bit. A couple others, I'm pretty sure, are out. Alexis Diaz is an absolute dog. They got a nice-ass lineup. They're going to be a scary team if they can make the play, if they can hold on and, you know, somehow catch the Brewers, who, of course, have their number, because, of course, they do. But, yeah, they have the D-backs, 3 games starting today, the Friday. Then they have the Brewers again, and then the Dodgers, and then the Cubs. I think when it's all said and done, which, by the way, they will be spending the deadline in Chicago against the Cubs. And they're, again, 2.5 out of first place, 1 game back of the wild card. They're going to be buyers. Yeah, they're going to be buyers. Fringe? No. They're going to be straight up buyers. I'm going to put them right there. There we go. So I have them as straight up buyers. Could they possibly trade for one of the Guardians pitchers? It's possible. Just know that if you want Savale, because Bieber's not getting traded since he's hurt. If you want Savale, you got to give up something decent. A lot of Guardians fans have this thing where they think we could possibly get like Encarnacion Strand, which if we manage to finesse CES out of Cincinnati, I would be very impressed with Chris Antoinetti. Yep, I would be very impressed with him. But we'll see what happens. So that's all I got for you guys. The stream went an hour 14. their pitcher out of the bullpen stinks. Lopez was hitting the Mariners players with the left. Oh yeah, you talking about Jorge Lopez? They have two Lopezes, Jorge and Pablo. But yeah, Pablo isn't bad, but I think Jorge kind of stinks low key just a little bit. Yeah, bruh, imagine Shohei going to the guards. Yeah, imagine we empty our farm system for Shohei Ohtani only to have him go back to the Angels in free agency, and we end up with a depleted farm and no Shohei. Oh, but we had him for like 2 months. Yeah, whoop-de-doo, but we have no farm. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys. And again, if any trades go down for the Guardians, if it's a big trade, I'll go live. If it's like a smaller trade, like I think it'll be, depends on who the players that are involved are. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Going over an hour 15. I went really in depth, and hopefully we have a lit deadline because that would make things that much fun, that much more fun and enjoyable. As far as me going live for the deadline, I'm still kind of undecided. I'll probably know for sure by Tuesday. This Tuesday, I will let you guys know if I will be live or not for the deadline. Might even have a guest. Who knows? But with that being said, guys, that's gonna wrap it up. I really enjoyed doing this, and we'll see what happens as trade deadline season is officially here. As yeah. This Tuesday, the 25th, is officially 1 week away. Already. It's crazy how fast it goes. Before I know it, it'll be August 1st, and either I'll be pissed off that we didn't make a trade, or I'll be happy that we actually went out and made a trade and added some pieces for the future. So we'll see what we do. As always, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell, become a member for exclusive perks like awesome emotes and wonderful stuff like that. And I will see you all later on tonight, Friday night, for Guardians and Phillies. Should be a fun one. But with that being said, I'm Crazy Dog. Let's go Guardians. Let's start off this series on the right note with I think it's Gavin on the mound tonight. Let's go get a W tonight. All right, I'm Crazy Dog. Let's go Guards, and I'm out. Bye-bye. Yeah. Give me some outfielders. Yeah. Please do something, Antoinetti. Yeah.